I sit here in silence, trying to reproduce the memories in my mind. The right, the wrong, the up and down of this crazy thing we call life. They say what goes around always comes back around. So I wait here patiently, hoping I run into me. Hindsight's 2020.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Joseph Reed Show. It is the Monday evening edition, and in the background, the music you heard is my friend, Nashville singer-songwriter Rick Tiger. You can pick up his music on iTunes or anywhere digital music is sold. It's called Hopin' I Run Into Me is the song. And the album is Thought I'd Be Home by Now. Rick has written songs for Montgomery Gentry, Joe Nichols, many of the country artists and bluegrass artists like Dale McCurry Band and New Blue. And so check out Rick Tiger's music. I love my buddy Rick. So glad that you're here. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Can it be Monday already? It's insane. Today, our guest is Demetrius Short. He'll be with me in just a moment. We're going to talk about the current climate of the nation. A lot of us are daily surrounded by the news, the social media regarding the injustice in America, the racial injustice. There are so many different opinions, and honestly, I've never seen so many people at each other's throat, Christians who are attacking each other on social media on a daily basis. And Demetrius and I we've been friends for several years. He is not only a friend, but he is an inspiration. He's a mentor, pastor. He is a CEO. His story of success in itself is just amazing. And I'll go into that a little more or give you information on how you can learn more about Demetrius and his incredible story of life from beating the odds, going to college, getting the degree, being successful in business. And sometimes you just have to come together, open up dialogue, and talk about subjects that people do not want to talk about. And I'll tell you this up front, Demetrius never came to me when I invited him to be on the show. He never said, Joseph, I don't want to talk about this subject. I don't want to talk about that subject. He did not give any boundaries on what we would discuss today on the show. I think we both know what we want to discuss, what we want to try to convey to our social media audiences that will listen today, to try to find some common ground and peace in the middle of this. It's hard to use the word simple because a lot of things about the situation the country is in is not simple. But really, there is a very simple word that could really help in the situation, and it's called love. That's it. It's love. It's a word that could totally change things. And if people just spoke to each other in love and respect, even if they disagreed, what a difference that would make. So that's my belief. Now, I will tell you this. Demetrius and I, we are two people who love each other. We've worked in ministry together at different conferences, at the International Apostolic Fellowship Conference. We know each other. We have sat down and had discussions even before all of this occurred. We had lunch together because I had some questions. I wanted to try to understand more of the insight from the African American community and what they feel and what they experience. I can't know that. I don't know that. And so we have had some real sincere and heartfelt and loving conversations about some of the subjects that we'll talk about here. So Demetrius Short is with me. Let me say hello to some of our people on. Good to see Angie is here. Angie, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. You guys make sure that you share the show. Thank you. Good to see Abby Ann here. Jonna, it's good to see you. Welcome. Hello, Mark. Always good to see Mark. And good to see Angela here. Everyone who's in the room, so many of you. Thank you for coming in and saying hi and being a part. We really appreciate it very much. Rob, hey Rob, good to see you. So many cool people. Andy Bryant, welcome. Well, without any further delay, let me go ahead and get my guest on because I am just so excited to have him here today. Let me flip this switch here. Bada boom. Bada bing. It is Demetrius Short, my friend. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great this evening. How are you?
Man, you look good.
Man, I'm blessed. I'm glad to be breathing in and breathing out. It's a
You
blessing.
since I saw you last time, the your hair's a little longer.
Oh my goodness.
Mine was a little longer. I managed to find a way to get a haircut a few days ago, but I like your hair growing out, man. Looks good.
Well, it's been 20 plus years. I didn't know how high, and I'm getting in. Barbers are shut down for 45, 50 days, and I'm like, man, this is crazy. But we've got it managed, and we won't be eating wild locusts and honey in the wilderness here. I'll get it cleaned up here real soon.
Oh man, so cool. Demetrius, thanks for doing this. I contacted you. I guess it's probably been a little over a week ago about coming on the show when so much has transpired over the past few weeks. It's been very difficult emotionally for so many people. I, I'm just going to just dive right into it. I have a question that I think is simple and a good way to start this because some people may think this is a foolish question. I don't, Demetrius. I think people need to know, how do we address black people in lingo? What is appropriate?
Mhm.
Is it okay to say black, the black people? Do we say African American? Do we say, I know a lot of people don't like the president's current term. He says the blacks. I don't know if that's acceptable. And so, what are acceptable? And I know these are your opinions, and
Mhm.
your opinions are not necessarily the opinions of everyone, but you have
Right.
such a good grasp on the culture. What is appropriate?
Yeah, for me, that's a very good question. And again, you prefaced it well. There are even in the black community. I had a Black Men Run shirt on. I'm part of the Black Men Run, and I had a black man at the YMCA said, "No, it should be African American." And
Ah,
I kind of joked it around. I said, "Well, that's going to be a whole." My T-shirt cost just went up about $20. Just joking about it'll be wrapped around the whole back, and we'll be having letters going down. But we address that. I mean, it is preference. I think there's no national standard. We've been called Negroes. I've watched speeches, from past on, the use of the N word, and these are tough things. Non-blacks say, well, why do you all use it? It's a whole. We can be on that for days.
mm-hmm.
But the question is good because I think the tension is, what do we say? So to take me out of my skin and to answer this question, and I'll put me in there again. I'll say for me, I don't have a preference. There's black, and then I'm recognized as a black man. I'm recognized as an African American man. On applications, they say, you know, um, black or African American. So
Mm-hmm.
I have personally never had an application, and I'm being honest. I've never looked at any of those listings and felt really, really bad because it's true for both. I am black, I am African American, and that is okay. So it could be easy if you have friends, or if you don't, it would be good to say. And I've had friends that ask me, how would you like me to address that? I'm talking about corporately and just
Mm-hmm.
in common conversation. So my word to those who are not black or African American would be, if it really is a burden and you really feeling easy, we are open for you to ask. It really brings respect right off the bat. If you don't know a person, I would fail on the best side of judgment and ask. Excuse me, ma'am. If the conversation goes, I would not suggest go up and say, "Hey, black man," or that would not be a good way to introduce yourself. Or, "Hey, African American," "Hey, ma'am." We are still ma'ams. We are still sirs.
Right.
We are still sons. We are still daughters. We are still pastors. We are still CEOs. So I would say if you feel uncomfortable or you don't know, err on the best side of judgment and just say, "Hey, before we continue this dialogue, would you be more comfortable with being addressed as African American or black?" And let that person respond to you. For me, I respond to both, and I've had no indignation or any trauma with answering that on applications or being addressed in conversation for me. So that would be my opinion for answering that question.
Very good. Thank you. Do all lives matter, Demetrius?
Most definitely, all lives matter. There's no filter in the human race. I believe that if we all look at humans, the filter, and I'm not gonna. I really don't want to go pastor mode. I want to be very straightforward tonight and
Good.
just say we have to be respectful to the human race. That's the first race and the God ordained race. It was human, and that's where I think the premise and the platform should be with addressing each other with an open mind on who we, because when we trace back, we go back to Adam and Eve, and they were humans. They were created by God out of the dust of the ground, and there was no filter. I'm not going to a heaven that has Latino music to the left, and the hip hop culture to the right, and the country music section over here. I mean, and we say that jokingly, but if we be truthful with that, and we know that that's not the case, he says, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." So on earth, if we believe that to be not true in heaven, then on earth where we're living here, that expectation should be set here. So the human race, for God so loved the world. Come on, basic principles of Christendom has gone from "for God so loved the world." I would back anyone who can scripturally say from the foundations of the world, before anyone was existing, and God spoke into existence and put the world in place and spoke and brought man into life. He said, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son." There were no Jews, Gentiles. There were no ethnicities. There was just the humankind. And so that's where respect starts right there, that we can respect someone as a human being. And then that's where true healing and true love will abound, when we first and foremost recognize that we all are humans created by God.
I have, ever since the term Black Lives Matter became a national hashtag
Mhm.
and then obviously an organization. I was talking to someone the other day who didn't even know that it was an organization. They just thought it
Mhm.
was a hashtag. But it is an organization that has platforms, that has agendas that they feel would make our country better,
Mhm.
in which I really believe that regardless of what anyone would agree or disagree with, we have to learn to agree to disagree without being brazen and being hateful,
Mhm.
and especially as Christians. But Black Lives Matter, when it first became a hashtag and a statement, I knew what it meant. I knew that it didn't mean that no other life matters
Mhm.
except a black life. It meant we're trying to raise awareness over an injustice, over racial police brutality. We're trying to raise awareness that this exists and we want it fixed. Raise awareness about the injustice of so many black people in the country, and not just black people, but other ethnicities, other minorities, if you want to use that term. But there's so much of that. I have never thought, I guess some people just fail to educate themselves. There may be people, Demetrius, black people who honestly feel like that statement means the only life that matters is black. But if there's anyone out there like that, I don't know them, because it's just a statement to raise awareness over the injustice. Am I right?
You are 1,000% right. And I have a nephew that's autistic, nonverbal autistic, and every year there's awareness brought. Cancer, your beautiful wife. I mean, hey, I'll help you bring more awareness. We talked about the 5K for Brandy, your beautiful wife, and all that. I was all on board. And Black Lives Matter. It behooves me that we can push other matters and understand the perspective, and we understand the platform for what its purpose to do. If there is an increase in people mistreating dogs, they don't say, well, it's going to blow over. What do? They create a hashtag, they put it out, and they bring awareness to it. And every ethnicity has been able to do that. Only the Black Lives Matter that I know of, and maybe the Native Americans, have gotten the biggest resistance to what is common in our households. And so autistic, I have my nephew's shirt on today. We get a big red shirt. We put the symbol on. I do not, when I make my donation, I do not put my $50 or $100 in and then send a message to the autism race director and say, now remember now, I only want $99.99 to go to my nephew's autistic run, and I want that penny to go to Black Lives Matter or to cancer. Cancer sucks. All of these things that are true, but that platform was created, and it should be respected for what it was created for, to bring awareness. Because if the truth be told, if you really be honest, people were listening. If you're not concerned about it, and we relied on you, it'll never move, because you're paying for dogs, you're paying for your kid's soccer game, you're paying for things that interest you. So anyone who is directly impacted, and Benjamin Franklin says, until those who are not oppressed and feel the burden become as outraged as the oppressed, then and only then can justice be served. Benjamin Franklin said that. So I never was involved with autism until what? It hit my home. Does it make me a bad person? No. My nephew's, 10 years old. And I'm like, hey, now I'm all in. I understand it, and I have more empathy because it hits me. Does it make it bad? No. I've run in races, but it's another thing now. I'm guaranteed to bring awareness to it. So it was created to bring awareness by people who were impacted the most. And I support any Brandy and anyone else. I don't have that, but her struggle, if I'm empathetic, should become my struggle if I choose. And I ought to gladly push, as I've done on my page, different causes. And unfortunately, Black Lives Matter was twisted to think that we're only thinking about the blacks. I have a white manager at work. If that couldn't be farther from the truth. We're the minority. And if that was the case, that's not what Black Lives Matter was created for. It was to bring awareness to the injustices of the African American community that is truthful and that it impacts us, and we wanted everyone else to help support it as a human, and it hasn't been, because it's been twisted.
There are so many people who automatically become defensive when they see Black Lives Matter, because they assume that it just means that's the only life that matters. You and I know different. I think that it helps to understand that, and I think the first step is for us as a nation, not as white people, but as a nation, to realize that there are issues and they do exist.
Yes.
And the first step to help reduce racism in this country is to admit that it exists. And I get so tired of seeing people act like it's not an issue, or they turn the issue as if, well, look at how white people get treated. Look at how the Native Americans get treated. Okay, this isn't about that. If we want to address that, we can address that. But this is about Black Lives Matter. So if it's about Native Americans, if it's about black on black crime or black on white crime, those are different categories. This is not the same discussion.
True. And if I can interject there, even within Black Lives Matter, there are different initiatives that African Americans have and need to address. I'll use Black Men Run. The first time 7 years ago, I came to a race, and an older white gentleman and his wife, he looked at me and he said, I'm proud of you guys. And I could have taken that, negatively, you guys. But he put his arm around me, and what he was saying was, in the Music City Marathon, I won't see another black guy like me. We're like, hey, we'll see 3,000 people before, and we're just saluting. Hey, let me get your number. Lunch next week, because we are the minority. 50,000 people. And so what he was saying, and what I took as Captain of Black Men Run, I took it and I hugged him. I said, we'll never combat or fix anything on the sidelines. We have to be in the race and impact inside out. And so I said, thank you, sir. And you'll see me next year. We are going to increase African American participation at these events. So within Black Lives Matter, we have things that, but we should address that, right? It's black on black crime, poverty, things that we know we have to do better. And again, I'm just as loud as with black on black crime that I'm in with white on black crime. I have no filter. I'm tired of our black men killing black men. I'm tired of white men killing white men. I'm tired of babies being mistreated, molested. I'm tired of it all. But I have to stand as a leader in the African American community and focus my attention on where the fire is. And the Lord showed me this. He said, Demetrius, and I had to explain to a friend. She said, well, all us, I said, one of the, and I'll go back to your first question, one of the biggest things you should not do, and I'm saying this very frank because it offends me, is that if my house is on fire on the street and the fire truck is coming down the street and I'm on fire, don't come out and say your house matters too, and your tulips and your beautiful green grass. You're not on fire. Right now, the race that is on fire in America, and we all saw with our own eyes, a lynching, a murder on live TV. 9-year-old boys have watched this. I have African-American friends who are having to tell their children at 5 years, their children shouldn't have this conversation at 5. It's taking their innocence away. They should be worrying about Big Bird and Mickey Mouse and Nickelodeon. We're having to have conversations with tears in our eyes with our 9-year-old saying, Dad, I don't want to go jogging because they killed that man running down the street. I don't want to jog anymore. I don't want to drive. I don't want to drive past dark. My daughter turns 16 tomorrow. So let us have non-blacks. Let us conclude the statement, Black Lives Matter, and don't say yes, but cancer lives matter. We know that. We know we are not saying that we're separating, but our house is on fire. Why would the fireman drive past me and go water your lawn when I'm walking in the street completely engulfed in fire? Wouldn't we all agree that that would be a mistake and worth punishing to our doctors who have taken an oath to help, serve, and protect we all can agree that that would be a mistake of judgment to walk past the black guy on fire and go to the white guy down the street and talk about the game tomorrow while I'm burning down. And that's what it is. Be a Black Lives Matter is trying to raise awareness in the African American community about the injustices. And that's the pinpoint of it. And we want to get to the root of that. And we should be allowed to do that and take ownership of that and have the support of others, that if it was reversed, if we saw an increase of thousands of white young boys, 15 to 19, being profiled and shot, Joseph, I know your mouth. I said that joke. Short, you would be loud and proud if it was you. Would not be silent. Mm-hmm. I know your heart. I know your heart for your son. We had lunch and we talked man to man, and you told me about the emotion of your son going to war, and then the next thing you know, we're talking about Colin Kaepernick and the flag. It was emotional, and I would, but I would expect.
I just lost Demetrius. I'm not sure. I'm sure he'll be back in just a second. Maybe we had a bad internet connection. So just hang tight. He'll be right back. And thank you. I believe that what Demetrius is saying is so incredibly important for us to know because of his perspective, being a part of the black community, living in black community, being very active in education, being very active in business, wanting to make positive changes within the black community and within the country. And how can we ask these tough questions if we don't have someone that we can trust and have enough confidence in to ask these tough questions to? Are we just going to complain on Facebook about how we feel? Are we going to just be upset about the situation as we see it, about our opinions? Or are we going to actually open up honest dialogue with someone with a good attitude, as we are doing with Demetrius? We're going to check in with him and see what's going on. He'll try to log back in as soon as he can. Thank you. I appreciate you guys sticking with us if you can while we work out that situation. Thank you. I'm sure it was just an internet glitch and it booted him out of the software, but he'll be back, so just stick with me. I want to add this in with what he was saying. Black Lives Matter is not saying that other lives don't. It's saying that we want to focus on these particular issues with this particular hashtag, with this type of change, with this type of organization. We don't necessarily have to agree with everything the organization does or says. Yeah, there we go. Demetrius, you back? You are here. Thank you, man.
Wow.
I'm not sure what happened, but I apologize.
No, it's no problem at all.
But what I was saying was we have to open up a positive dialogue, which is what you and I are close enough and friends enough to do.
Yes.
And that we have to understand that we can't just continuously make our statements on social media based on our opinion and do it over and over and over again without opening dialogue with someone that can provide perspective. Because I don't know what it's like to be black on the street at night when a cop car is going by. I don't know what it's like to be racially profiled. One question that I want to ask that I have heard people bring up online: how do you address the people that say, but cops shoot and kill more white people than they do black people? How do you respond to that?
Math 101. There's more white people than black people.
Thank you.
And if you take stats, 1 out of 20 and 1 out of 1 million is different. I attend this church and pastor the church to 200 members, and the percentage of giving can be greater at a smaller organization than the larger. So you have to take the whole entire message and method and say, if there's only 50 blacks living in a community of 1,000, and you do the numbers, 1 out of 100, whites get shot, and 1 out of 30 blacks get shot. There you go. That means only 20 people that were black didn't get shot. So, see, and that's the, and I don't want to use the ignorance. People don't want, they're smart, Joe. We have mathematicians, we have people who are CEOs that are not black, and they can do all this. They're solving world crime and everything, but when it comes down to this, they don't want to accept the fact we dummy down basic things. There's more whites that are on welfare than blacks. Do the numbers.
Absolutely, there has to be, because the amount of non-Hispanic blacks in the country is somewhere in the 13% range.
Yes.
That's clearly a minority.
Yes.
So if you have fewer black people in America, then you're obviously going to have more of the predominant race,
Right.
being white, being subject to crime, because
Right.
there's more white people than there are blacks.
Right.
That is the questions that need to be answered.
Yeah.
It's
The
perspective.
What we just did right there, because it would be easy. Now with the stats, I could go out and say, and start pushing a campaign, hey, more whites are on welfare.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's true, but I don't have weight with it, because yes, Demetrius, that's true, because there's more whites, but the injustice for the African American, here's where that gets the person in trouble, and where I get him, as if you want to go legal, then you mean to tell me that with less African Americans, we have more deaths based on our numbers and our existence? That's where the issue is. When you look at more incarcerations of African Americans in prison. Now we don't have as many blacks as we do whites. Mm-hmm. But then why are we have more blacks in prison? Why do we have more blacks being shot by cops than whites? It should level out, that there should be more white, but it is not. So we have to address, we are the minority. But why is it that we go to jail for 30 years for marijuana, and a white individual shoots three people, and 15 people in church, walks out, take them to McDonald's to get a number 3 with cheese, extra onions, pickles, hold the mayo, and light ice and a Diet Coke. And we have police shooting men in the back who are running away, and they're saying, I was fearing for my life. That is the issue in the 401 plus years of oppression, that at this point we are just tired of looking at the numbers, look at the facts, but still saying, wait a minute, if they have more and we have less, and then you look at the systematic oppression, then why are we over flooding in prison? And please don't go with, because I could easily stereotype white people as trailer trash. Mm-hmm. Or you all are on welfare. Nah, y'all. I don't do that, because the numbers, that's because I haven't taken everything into consideration and everything into account. And when we have these conversations, as we're doing tonight, this is where the I didn't know that. And we had a lot of ahas at Pharmacy Burger, right? Eating that beef stroganoff burger and all that, getting good and fat together, right? Getting the spirit of gluttony all over us. But we had a lot, because we shut our big mouths, opened our 2 big ears, and we got perspective. So it's not right for me to generalize a whole entire race of Latinos and Mexicans and whites. Based on the facts, I could, but no, we don't do that, because you have to take everything into the sum total of what the numbers really mean. So black on black crime is another initiative. But right now, the hashtag that gets attention is that we're asking our white people, Do our lives matter? Are you more concerned about a cat getting killed than a man? A tough one is, are you more concerned about an embryo, an embryo dying, and a 46-year-old man dying?
You have a lot of people bringing that comment up or that point that why are we not pouring this energy into the tragedy of abortion that we are don't those lives matter, those aborted babies lives matter, but again, different issue.
Don't jump on Black Lives Matter page and start pushing for it. That is not fair. I would not go to an autism rally and run out in the middle of the rally and say, Black Lives Matter. No, no, no. And we all know that. You don't bring a baseball to a football game.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe in humanity, there is a platform. That's a key word. There is a platform for you to support everything good or bad. If you like pornography, there's a porn page for you to just have a good old time. If you like trashing blacks, there's plenty of Facebook pages for you to go out and trash the blacks. If you hate whites, there's plenty of movements for you to do that. If you love guns, there's plenty. There's a platform for everyone. This is not hijack. And I saw that a couple of times. Do not mix the causes. That's my biggest thing that will deter the African American community from having conversation when we continue to see that, yes, cancer lives matter, but we're not pushing the BLM movement for that. Everybody matters, but just support our movement. I watched a documentary last night about Michael Brown, and they showed who was shot by police in Ferguson, the whole Ferguson case, and got more facts on that. And man, I'm telling you, I'm sitting there last night mad as a hot cake off the griddle, because it was portrayed that he stole cigarettes, and they didn't show the day before his video when he exchanged some weed for the cigarettes. And then before walking out of the store, he went back and gave it back and said, I'll pick it up later. But the night shift was lying to the day shift people, and they put them back on because who wants to tell the boss who comes in the morning, yeah, that's for a guy coming to pick up some, he gave me some weed for that.
Right.
It was like, that's why he shoved the owner the next day, because he thought, hey, I'm here for my packet. And the man said, what packet? Mm-hmm. So all of that. But, you know, we portray these things and we push our agendas, and we don't get the whole story. We don't get the whole thing. And that's what we need to let, if my white friends can just say Black Lives Matter, watch this, and just stop right there. You will bring healing to our community just by being empathetic. Why would I go and ask you about a newborn baby and you just had a miscarriage? How heartless of Demetrius to celebrate my child's new birth and go next door and show my next door neighbor who just had a miscarriage the day before. Mm-hmm. Look at my little booties from my new. How insensitive, Joseph, would that be? Do you agree? Wouldn't that be insensitive? So that's 100%. The feel about the movement of Black Lives Matter for us. Let us just end that and let it heal us, and just end it with, yes, Black lives do matter. And don't say, but we know that. Just let Black lives be the matter that means most when you're in those conversations.
Do you think that in our lifetime, well, let me get to that in a moment. I'm getting ahead of myself. You mentioned the over 400 years of oppression. You mentioned, you and I talked face to face about slavery. What got us in the same room, of course, we're friends, and we're friends before. But in transparency, I made a Facebook post regarding people not standing and recognizing the flag during the national anthem. And you were kind enough to exchange dialogue with me privately about that and give me some perspective about that. And as I told you as we had lunch, you really opened up my eyes to some things I'd never thought about. And you told me the same thing with some of the opinions that I had, that you had never seen, you had never thought of things that way, which is what happens when two people that care about each other and are not there to just choke each other out and beat each other up actually sit there and talk and have an intelligent adult conversation. But we talked about slavery that day. We talked about your grandfather. We could go back to great grandfather. Here we're getting into some area now, some generations back, that really suffered, that couldn't eat at the same places, that couldn't go to the same school, that couldn't be in the same place, that couldn't drink from the water fountain. And those, we've seen those stories, and it hurts me. I went through the Tennessee, the new Nashville Museum off Rosa Parks a few months ago, right after it opened, I guess, and there was a picture of two water fountains, and one was for colored people and one was for everyone else. It's sad. We're not there. We don't do that anymore. So would you say that things have got, we have to say they've got better since then, but why aren't things solved? When we're decades past the when segregation, when we talk about affirmative action, when we talk, why are we still so far away from people seeing each other? And I'll bring up what Paul said, who is on the show today, or who is watching. He said, as long as we still refer to each other as African Americans or whites or brown people, we can never look at each other any different. We have to look at each other as children of God and see one another as people. This is ridiculous. Racism will never go away if we refer to each other as people of color. There's some good points to what he's saying here, but why isn't this solved, Demetrius?
God gave me my eyes to see blue, to see red, to see color. In response to that, I better recognize color if I'm driving tomorrow and the light says red, and I close my eyes and say, but I'm going to imagine it's green. I'm going to either be killed or kill somebody.
But regards to skin color, however.
Right. So how do we? Here's the solution. Here's the answer. Except we become as children, we will not enter the kingdom of God.
Amen.
Except we. Here's the answer to his question. See, we done got too grown.
Right.
The Bible says, except Joseph and I, every time I see Joseph, here's his answer. I should see him. I'm 46. You just turned 46. Welcome to the club, buddy. I'm big brother tonight.
Yeah, buddy.
The Christian, the answer to your friend is, I've got too big for my britches. I'm too grown. If I see Joseph as a child sees another child at the daycare, which is what Christ was saying, then if there's a toy on the ground and you throw a Latino baby, a Mexican baby, a black baby, a white baby, every baby in the room, they're going to see a ball and I want to play. The word says, except we go back to children, being as children who are color, they see color, but they are color blind, which brings me to the point, racism is taught.
Right.
It's in your home that you're racist because you heard your father say, don't bring no black boy to my house, little girl. You can date anybody else but a black. that was planted in that innocent child that Christ told us to be. But we've gotten grown, making money, getting jobs, and now Christ says, until everybody watches, until you, I'm pointing at you, until you become and do the litmus test and take your white baby at 2 years old and sit them next to a black baby and sit back and watch. They're going to come to each, they'll be kissing each other, Joe. That's what God wanted, for them to live in harmony. But sin and racism is sin. Sin has gotten in for you to see me as not a human, as a child does, but you see me as a black man, and then all the water cooler stuff you were talked about, and all the locker room black little talks about the Jeffersons versus Archie Bunker. All that stuff is played systematically and narratively into our races to keep us apart based on our color.
When I was 8 years old, I mentioned this in a post yesterday. I didn't even know that the color or ethnicity of our parents had anything to do with skin color. Had no idea. True story. I had a friend named Jamie in my neighborhood who were the same age, went to school together. He was black. And we played together, played basketball, hung out with each other in the neighborhood. Never one time thought, well, his parents are black, mine are white. I, up until 8 years old, I just thought babies came out different colors,
Right.
regardless of parent. And when I went to Jamie's house one day and met his mother, a beautiful black woman, she was so kind. I still feel the warmth I got when I went into the house. It was just that sweet family and big smile and hey, and didn't treat me like a little punk little kid. And they invited me to stay for dinner. So I get on the old rotary phone, back then, and dial my house a couple streets over, and they said, of course. And then his dad came home, and his dad was black. And it didn't even hit me then. It was on the way home. I was walking, and the sun was going down, and it was dusk, and I remember thinking to myself at 8 years old, the light bulb went off. My mom and dad are white. I'm white. His mom and dad are black. He's black. Oh my God.
Yep.
That's how this happens. I didn't even know what race was until 8. That is a child. I didn't even consider us different at all. I didn't even really look at him as black. I looked at him as a buddy, a friend, a kid, a playmate. My God, what has taught us? Is it I know families, they're learning it in the home, as you said, but they're also learning it through media, because there are media sources that push and fuel the fire on both sides of the aisle, whether it's Fox News or CNN. Ratings are ratings and business is business, Demetrius. They're going to want people to tune in. But now you got media, and now the beauty of social media isn't so beautiful when so many people are planting seeds of racism on social media. It's insane to me how things have changed. And I know it's just a broad-based question of why haven't we got further along than we are. I do know that there have been times in my life where we didn't. I don't remember seeing so much racism issues on the news or on the forefront. You kind of know they exist, but now when we see that, and Will Smith said, it's just being filmed now, so it's on the forefront. People have their smartphones. Now we're seeing it. We're seeing it, so now we're seeing the reality of the situation. Do you think that George Floyd and he was clearly murdered, in my opinion, was he murdered because he was black? Do you have an opinion on that? I know it's a difficult question. It's hard to judge someone's heart that you don't know them.
Yeah, my question for me, honestly, that I've been dealing with is, and I want to talk to officers. I have friends who are officers. I have family members who are officers. I mean, I have
Right.
so I'm not against police at all. I got loved ones that I'm praying every day. Bring my cousin home. Bring my brother-in-law home. So we're not against police. There seems to be a level of restraint and professionalism, or that extra not gun happy when the perpetrator is white than black. And in George Floyd's case, again, I just ran for a mod the week before, and then Breonna Taylor was shot 8 times in her home, and her birthday was yesterday, and her mother is Karen. Let's go back. Emmett Till's mother said, "Keep the casket open." He didn't whisper. He didn't whisper at a white woman. I want the world to see what they did to my boy. Um, the burning of the Black Wall Street, when 41 acres of black businesses were burnt because of a white woman and a black man in an elevator, and assumed that when she fell or whatever it was, that this man did something to her, and they burnt 41 acres of our property and land.
Demetrius' connection has froze a little bit again. We'll get back to that as soon as we can. Demetrius, if you, I'll be kind of keeping an eye on that and see whenever your stream comes back on, and I'll bring you right in. Um, Here we are. You're back with me, my friend. Let me make sure, just one moment. Let's see. Let me get your audio back on. You there? I can't hear you, but it might be my end. I don't know if you have an option to check your audio there, do you, Demetrius? Let me make sure it isn't me. Let's see, does that help? Still no sound on Demetrius. You might have to back out and come back in, Demetrius, if you can hear me. Can you hear me okay, Demetrius? Okay. Go ahead and back out, and then come back in and into the link, and let's see if that'll work, okay? Demetrius Short is with me. We've had a couple of internet issues, and we apologize for that. When you're doing live stuff, that's just part of it, so thank you for being patient. Stick with me. Demetrius will be right back. We're talking about the injustice. He was referring to a situation in which so many people are so so many people are being hurt, property being burned due to their race, due to retaliation. And that's what we're talking about, is the retaliation. We're trying to figure out where we go from here. Talk about the things that are on people's minds, and honest to God, a lot of the things that people are afraid to say. They don't want to talk about things like this because it makes them uncomfortable. They don't want to bring up questions like this. And one of the things that I admire about Demetrius, who'll be back with us in a moment, is he doesn't mind being asked the tough questions. And that's what I appreciate that. Let's go to see what Angela says. She says, I believe they were extra forceful because he was black, referring to George Floyd. There's definitely a difference with how they treat white versus black. Demetrius, let's see if
There
we
we go.
got you.
Now, can you hear me now?
I got you.
Okay, there we. Okay, I saw that button. That button was, that mute microphone was on this computer. So yeah, we're back.
We're good.
All right, everybody
Um,
hear Demetrius okay?
we
Put it in the
stand with
comments
them
so we'll know.
tonight.
I know I got you
Welcome.
on my end.
Okay.
And we're talking, when you left, we were talking about the property that was burned due to retaliation.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, George Floyd, the look on the face, and again, you stressed it right. It's 400 years. Anything under pressure at some time it's going to explode. And I saw a post from a friend. He said, my mother's mother's mother told her about Emmett. My mother's mother told her about Trayvon. Last night, I told my 8-year-old son about George Floyd. And that's 40, 50 years. And then that goes way back to um, my father-in-law going to war and fighting for a country that he was treated better at war than he was in his own country.
And
So
how old
who
is he?
He's close to 70. So yeah, over 70, over 70. My dad is 70, is over 70, and there are dark holes. I'm 46, and my father has never really sat down with me and talked to me about his childhood. I'm mad about that. Who wants to get talked about getting bit by dogs? Who wants to get talked about being spit on? It's not a good conversation. Yes, son, 50 years ago, I went to school and 3 German shepherds bit me because I was black. And so when we see a man crying for his mother, when we see a man, and to keep your knee on, let's just call it, if white America can call it for what it was, and put your son and put every human, let's say that I'm going to agree with the gentleman. Let's take the black out of it. I'm not going to waste time. Put any human. Oh, let's up the ante. Put your cat, put your dog, put your mother-in-law who you don't like, put her under that knee, and if you can say you wouldn't be outraged, you have no heart. You have
And
no heart.
I agree with you. And unfortunately, what some people are saying is the officer would have done that to any race. And you made a good point earlier about you feel like that there is a little more resistance and patience. You
Yes,
didn't
it
use
is.
the term long suffering, but it, when it came to white people than there were black. Do and
Systematic.
I
That's
and
the
you
word.
feel you feel like do you feel like that do the due to the types of situations such as the George Floyds?
Yes, I believe it's systematic. Again, when you have officers, again, you have good and bad everything. You have good pastors and bad ones. You have good basketball players, and you have good family members. And Joe, you've done some good and some bad. I've done some good and some bad. But when it's and my word is systematic, when you have counties and towns who have officers who have been reprimanded for racial profiling, leave one county and go next door and get hired. Did Stevie Wonder? No, 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 no disrespect. Who watched the application to put these people back into behind the badge in a heavily populated African American community? Who 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 would do that, Joe? I mean, so that's what we are upset about, is that there are, and I'll go back to it. I believe there's long suffering. I think the Waffle House shooting, going to a disturbance, knowing that a man, quote unquote, shot 15 people with a AK-47. You know you're going in there. I would kiss my wife if I was an officer, baby. I may not come home tonight because a man just shot. Not assumptions, Joe. We know he shot 15 people, baby. I'll go in my daughter's room
Hmm.
and lay on my daughter and hug her because I'm going into 411, whatever numbers, man just shot. It's confirmed. But that man can walk out butt naked with an AK-47, walk down the street and be apprehended with not a scratch on him, but Pull the records, time and time, pull the video. Again, if it wasn't for these videos, Joe, we would still be saying there's no racism, there's no police injustice. It's still going on now, but it's just being filmed, as D.L. Hughley and Will Smith have said. So I believe that man sat on that man. I believe and it'll eventually come out. My opinion is that, and I looked in his eyes, it looked so evil. And those who sat around and watched, if I was there, I probably would have been arrested or shot. I mean, I was every second I was leaning in, and my anxiety was going up to help, not a black man.
Mm-hmm.
If he was you, I'm coming in, Joe.
Yep. Me
What are
too.
you? I'm coming in. I'm going to jail today. I'm sorry. I'm coming in, and nothing against the little girl, the 17-year-old, to be put in that situation, and you ignorant people saying that she shouldn't have filmed. Um, you're 46 and can't comprehend things. She's 17, seeing this, so leave her alone. But I believe that these individuals, this is what Black Lives Matter is looking for defunding or audits of police records of individuals that we should be respecting, that have a background of racial profiling. And when you pull this record, when you pull the individual in Mike Brown's case, these guys had 4 or 5 write-ups and nobody said anything about it. So when you put yourself in the, oh, here's, and I hear the comments, here's the girl who shot the officer who shot the man with his hands up, with 7 cops around him in a helicopter. Here's what they said. Oh, that's a big black guy. That's a big dude. And Marcus Spears from the Dallas Cowboys, he cried and broke down like a baby, on ESPN today, because he said he's a big guy. He's 6'7", 350 pounds. And he said, my son is big and I'm afraid for him to be profiled because there's a big. So the knee on the neck, to answer the question for me, he sat there for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And even when the EMT, and I only think those were EMT, came, they treated his body like a piece of trash. And we're watching this, and I'm seeing my daughter, I'm seeing my dad tell me 30 years ago, son, go out on Friday night, but don't scratch your leg, put your hand, lie if you have to come home. That we have to dehumanize ourselves and let cops talk to us any kind of way just to freaking come home. That's inhumane. I should be respected as a man. I should be able to run while black. I should be able to be rich while black. I should be able to drive a Mercedes Benz while black. I should be able to exercise while black. And the restraint of officers who have this profiling in them when they're in that situation, I believe it's excessive. And we see black men running away, and cops saying, I feared for my life. Shouldn't you fear for your life when you got to that church in Virginia? How did he come out and you take him to Burger King?
Mm.
So these are the questions we have, and we're just
Mm.
tired of the pray and sing kumbaya and the church pray, and then 30 days later the whites just wait us out for 30 days. Oh, let this blow over and things will go. No, it's not going. We're tired. We're tired of having conversations at 6 and 7 that we should not have to have with our little black boys. My daughter starts driving. She turns 16 tomorrow. I'm going to have to go through the whole thing, honey. If it takes you being dehumanized as a female, come home. And she's 16. I'm afraid for her to drive and be black. And we shouldn't have to put our children in beat up cars. I work for my money. She should be able to drive what you drive, and your sons can drive if I can afford it. But
Mm-hmm.
I know coworkers who won't drive. I go to their house for a function. I'm like, man, why don't you drive the Mercedes to work? They say, no, can't do it, because if I drive that, I may not get promoted because I can't show that I'm doing well. And you get stuck at $150,000 salaries because no, we don't want any African. So the answer is, I feel that the look in his eye and to hold your knee on the neck until if you watch it, Joe, the very last second, even when EMT rolled him over, he
Mm-hmm.
did not release his knee until they flipped him, and he had his hand in his pocket, and he was totally oblivious to a white woman saying, hey, give me his pulse. So we
No.
have all these. We don't trust the police. That's what it is. The kids I serve, their friends are telling the hood is telling them, you see a cop and he's white, run, whether you have anything or not. And that's where we have to bring white cops in our communities of black, African black communities together to talk about this and not bring that fear. But that's not going to happen overnight. This is some systematic and this being done on purpose a lot of the times.
Do you have just a few more minutes for a couple of more questions? I know we've
Yes,
been
indeed.
on a little over an hour, but a couple of things you mentioned: the defunding of police, the hashtag defund the police is active. It's out there. Black Lives Matter organization has a petition you can sign to their desire, in short, is to nationally defund the police. And there are different. I've tried very hard to educate. If you see the words defund the police, it almost makes you automatically think they want to get rid of police.
Not the case.
That's the first thing that comes to your mind.
Mhm.
And then I read a little bit about what Minnesota, the city council, are
Mhm.
looking into. I did read on the Black Lives Matter page. There isn't a ton of information there, but it is there about how they want to take funding local funding that goes to the police and use it in different ways in communities and heavy crime communities to help detour crime and to help in checks and balances. Other people say with police departments. I'm very I'm very upset as a taxpayer, and I told someone this the other day. Some of what people within the organization have said about defunding the police, I disagree with because I believe police are important. I think the important thing is to take every step possible to make sure that every police officer on that force is held to a very high standard. And when they have 2 and 3 and 4 complaints and they're all racially motivated, why are they still
Wow.
on the street? Why are they still doing their job? Why is someone given desk duty for 30 days and then put back out? Those are the things that I think would help solve this, is to hold. And I also think, Demetrius, that if a police officer commits a crime while on duty, that he or she should automatically receive a tougher sentence due to the fact that they're there to protect and serve.
I stand with that. I think you spelled that out. I can walk hand in hand with that being a start. The defund is not to say we don't want police. I want police around me. I don't want my car being stolen every night. We all want to be protected and but again, it's systematic when you have so many good old boy systems. And when you have lynching still not being passed, when we drive past a statue, it brings us to my great great grandmother's pain, and you're going by saying that's a great man. Those are things, and I want to what you said about the funding of the police and how that makes you feel, my friend. Tag on 401 years of silence in the black movement. You're mad at this just hearing about it. We're mad at it for years and years and years, and nothing has been done. So if you can be empathetic about, man, I'm fighting for this cause, and my brothers have been fighting for 400 years for, don't give me a higher interest rate because I'm
Hmm.
black. You there's a man who sent out 500 of the same resumes between New York and Ohio, 5,000 of the same resumes, and he put Marcus on one and Nancy on the other, uh, Demetrius on one and Jenny on the other. And he did. I mean, you can Google it. It. He said the black perceived names resumes were opened and read sometimes 3, 5, 8 weeks later than the Jennies, the Beckys, or perceived white. So we're behind, and we need, the only way that we're going to catch up with this issue with the police. And I told you this earlier. If anyone, and I'm asking the audience today, if anyone is against there being audits and there being turn your books over to the police department and you don't want to do that, call me at 336-340-3670, and let's go to pharmacy and get a burger. And I want to ask you, why wouldn't you, to level this out, if you really want to end oppression, why wouldn't we start with the people who are paid by our tax money, Joseph and mine, to serve us, who have things on their record and they're serving 15 years? And they're put in the African American community to agitate, and they have the covering and the support. White people, you got to start exposing these people that you know and speaking up against them. That's the only way we're going to the Black Lives Matter and the police issue. It's going to take hundreds of years to reverse this. But we have to get down to at the table if every police sheriff and sergeant and fraternal order of police is willing to say yes, what the NFL did. Yes, we made a mistake. That's where it starts, Joe. We may have made a mistake, and let's come to the table and let's say, sheriffs, we cannot have people. So if you don't want to do that, then I have to question why you wouldn't want to expose your officers, or 40, 50, 120 officers.
Mm-hmm.
But no, Demetrius, we don't want to do that, but just obey the law. Well, I don't want to obey the law that's crooked. I don't want to be profiled. Try driving at 9 o'clock at night with a shiny car and a little bit of legal tint, and you drive past a cop and you have to you're so scared to move. Get in my seat. So we want to trust the police, but facts and proof has taken that trust away from us. And until you get in that seat, we want to see police and oversight committees. I want to see oversight. I don't want people, two police officers growing up, when they're covered for, I owe you one bill, you owe me one. Just Mike Brown, there was no police report even written up. It was blank. And he sat out there for 5 hours in the heat with blood running out of his head, brain shot out for 5 hours, and his mother screaming, cover my son up. And there's no police report. Pull it up. How can this happen? How does nobody step up? Sandra Bland, how does nobody, Breonna Taylor, in her own house, you come in my house and I'm permitted to carry? I should have a right to return and protect my family, but you arrest a husband who shot at people who came in. The no knock should be, and they're trying to debunk the no knock. She lost her life in her own home. A white police officer, female, shoots a man in his apartment. And we have to be loving, and we have to be God. Why can't you be loving and God fearing and in racism in your heart? If you're going to ask me to be forgiving for a AK-40, a white man killing 15 blacks in a church, and I can get there. But I want you to be, I want you to do the same thing for me at how I feel about the 400 years that you may not have directly, but you have indirectly impacted the African American community. So that cop, to me, it was murder. And there's no way, if I feel if he was black, I'm gonna go there. I felt that if he was African American, I feel that if, I called her Karen, but if the Amber, the girl in New York that called the cop and choked her dog, she played the system. That was learned on the phone in front of a camera, and we're sitting here watching a woman being filmed, a white woman in New York Park. If that man didn't have a camera, the New York PD would have been on him, and he probably could have been killed, because she said, I'm going to call 911 and tell them an African, there it is, an African American man is hurt. He said, go ahead and call. And she choked her dog and elevated her voice, and the dog is jumping. Can you imagine being on a 911 call? Hey, NYPD, white woman in the park, black man killing her, the dog's jumping. How can he come out dead, but the same call, Caucasian male in Waffle House, 15 people down, 2 confirmed dead, and he comes out unscathed? That's a question, Joe.
It is a question, and
Repeatedly.
It needs to be asked. I do believe that there are very important checks and balances that are not being done that should be done nationwide. I'm not very familiar. I do know that departments have their methods, but I don't believe they're working when it comes to brutality.
Mhm.
And I know that you don't feel that all police are bad.
Not at
I
all.
don't feel that way either. But unfortunately, there are some, and we need to do whatever it takes to eliminate as many or all of these bad, evil people that we can. And I know we don't have time to get into everything, but I do. I think it's very important to discuss how you feel about the looting and the violence
Mhm.
in in the midst of the protesting. Some people on social media say the protesters are burning businesses down. I don't think those are protesters. I believe that those are violent
Agitators.
acts. They may be angry and they're taking anger out. Some of them I don't think are even angry, and it's all white, black. I've seen all colors that are doing this. But what? How do you address the
Wow.
looting, the violence, the fires that are being set? And it does look like that a lot of that is under control. Nashville
Mhm.
done a good job of. We had that bad Saturday, and then
Mhm.
since then it's been pretty calm. How?
Mhm.
What do you say to that?
And this is emotional for me because I saw a picture that a person, and it was graphic, and it said, "White people, if you're concerned about fire in 2020, why weren't you concerned about fire when you burnt my great great grandfather? If you're so concerned about burning and proving a point in 2020," and the picture was graphic, 40 or 50 white men and women behind with a black man, arms tied, neck slit, burnt on at the stake to prove a point, right? To oppress, to show and to mutilate little black boys in front of their father, demasculating them, to oppress them, to rape black slaves, impregnate them, steal generations after generations from a race that we can't trace back. All we know that he was born and we don't have another trail of him because of slavery, because of stealing and burning a country you didn't even find. So if it's advantageous for you to go to Boston Tea Party and burn and throw the tea in the harbor to prove a point, fact, right? The Boston Tea Party,
Uh, right. Yes, it is a
they
fact.
they
It did
they
happen.
they,
Yes.
they and why didn't they get Coca-Colas? Why didn't they get rice and beans? They threw the very thing that was industry standard in the harbor to do what? To get the attention. Why throw something that's no value?
But isn't
They
isn't the attention that you're getting by doing an act like that the wrong kind of attention? Because it's making a
Mhm.
business owner do without.
right.
It's causing people to lose business, people to
Mhm.
lose jobs. Isn't there a better way to do it?
Let me put the question back on you. What did it do for the white community when you all did it in Boston?
I
Progress.
wasn't I wasn't
But, but,
there.
but history, right? It progressed you
Do you
when
think it will do you think that it will help progress?
and I don't want to use this scripture out of context. We use it out of context. The kingdom of heaven suffers violence. We use that. Take it by force. Take it by force. Get your son off for drugs. You gotta take it by force. You can't sit back and I'm using this symbolism. It's totally out of context. Scripturally, as we preach it out of context a lot. You got to read the background with that to take it by force. Um, Force has been used, and yes, business owners lose businesses. But a friend of mine posted about 38 business owners who went to social media in Atlanta when they burnt Atlanta down with George Floyd. And there was a very popular Indian restaurant And the girl said, I'm sitting here with her elderly dad who owned the shop. I mean, thriving, uh, famous restaurant. And she said, and you can I can send you the screenshot. He said, I can replace my store, but George Floyd cannot replace his life. Let it burn.
That's pretty powerful,
N-
but it's also
Everybody.
pretty rare to have someone to feel that way.
Well, there
It's
was how
rare.
many, how many more do I need to get? 30, 40, 50,
No, no,
60, 70?
I'm not saying that in a negative fashion. I just
Mhm.
mean it's hard to find people who that will that will consider that
Right.
so small in the scheme of things.
Mhm. Yeah.
In my opinion, I believe, and thankfully, most of the protests have been peaceful here.
Mhm.
Some of them are blown up out of proportion as far as how bad it is. Even news outlets were putting up pictures that were of fires that were not even set, that
Mhm.
were from decades ago,
Right.
just to make it look bigger than it was.
Right. Right.
Insane. But and NBC done that. They were called out on that, and there's just so there, in my opinion, and this is rather regardless of race, because this is not race to me. This is when a law is broken
Mhm.
in the effect that it damages property,
Mhm.
it hurts people, because people
Mhm.
have been killed in these lootings,
Yes.
in this violence. We can't consider those people who died martyrs, can we? I mean, they were victims
No,
of crime.
they were victims of crime, and you should be prosecuted, and they are doing it. They're finding people, and if you're dumb enough to walk out there with no mask on and throw a rock and break Margaritaville down, I hope they find you and find you, and you do time. And I think everyone feels, majority of the people feel that way. Um, it was told that you know I think I saw a video where, a live where a white woman comes out the window and and the lady, the reporter is saying, because I think she thought an African American was going to come out, and here comes this white lady out the window with 7 bags. She's throwing things. I mean, she was a clean cut woman too. I mean,
I know.
she like she worked on Wall Street, and the lady's going up. I and she said it. I can't believe what I'm seeing. This can't be true. And then went to this Joe and said, well, I think she's an employee.
Oh wow.
But then when the black came out the window, look at these thugs. No, she was a thug, and the blacks coming out there with Jordan's the thug. If you fit the action, let's call them all thugs. But you can't paint the narrative that only African Americans burnt down buildings. There were
No.
pictures of white women putting horse feces on cop cars and spraying Black Lives Matter on the car and taking selfies in his own video. And the BLM movement coming saying, don't do that because they're going to blame us. They're being shown putting Black Lives Matter on buildings, non-blacks, and they're saying, don't do that because when the smoke clears, we're going to get blamed for that. So my answer is, to me, my opinion, I don't condone rioting. But the fact is that the burning of the Black Massacre of Black Wall Street in 1941, it was used to progress and prove a point. So to my non-black friends who are very angry about what we're doing today, I would like to see the same amount of empathy for um, our generation that don't have acres of land that we lost, that we should own and should have the deed to because it was stolen from us. I don't condone anyone today doing it, but if you look at history, it has helped um, progress, and the writing is getting the attention of some people. I don't condone it, but do we have another 401 years? What are we to do when there's no conversation? Martin Luther King says the voice of riots The riots is the voice of people who have no hope. Keep your kid at home all day. Don't give them anything. They're going to get in trouble. And I don't mind. It's the devil's workshop. You sit there now. You're watching things, doing things. So when you're walking around and you have no hope, and then Joe, when you don't own the building, it's easy for you to throw a rock because there's no impact to you. But now in Louisville, Kentucky, my father-in-law is a chaplain for for the police department of Louisville. Again, my father-in-law is the chaplain. Do you think I want him to be? I want to be against police, and my father-in-law is the chaplain working side by side? No, he said, Demetrius, they burnt this Kroger's down, and this is the only Kroger in this only grocery store for miles. And I'm going now. When the smoke clears, African American woman with 4 babies, you don't even have a grocery store to go to get milk. So that's not going to get us anywhere. There has to be conversation, or people are going to revert to violence or these type of actions until the conversations and they see us addressing the issues that um, we have been trying to address over 401 years, and we're still saying, "Can you hear me now?"
So true. So true. And I think that anyone involved in those riots, it's just like anything else. Some of them are uh, in their heart, they think it's intentional and good intentions, and some of them are just taking advantage of the situation as bystanders, and it's just how it is as a country. Some of what I do think is refreshing, and then we'll wrap it up, is that there are, I feel like I, I guess I can use the term millennial. I feel like that there is more sympathy, empathy with the millennial age bracket, it seems. And I've not seen anything on this. I'm just going by a lot of my nephews,
Mm-hmm.
nieces, people that I've been a children's pastor, youth pastor for years, people that I've seen go from birth to 20s and up toward 30, and they seem a lot more aware and sympathetic over racial injustice than say my generation or the one before me. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, oddly enough, and you and I both know this is not going to be resolved in our lifetime. However, I do feel like that there's a generation coming up. One of the positives that we can look at is the potential that they will be a graceful generation,
Mm-hmm.
even though I'm not a huge fan of some of the politics of a Bernie Sanders or someone of that nature. We don't have to get into that, but a lot of that fan base is hardcore against any racial injustice. So it does make me feel good that at least we're seeing a generation come up that may be able to help in this, and they are helping because a lot of them are out there protesting.
Mm-hmm.
They're out there.
Together.
It's rewarding when you see so many races holding hands. I've never seen so many
All over the
white
world,
people,
man.
Yes.
Demetrius, in a
Yes.
black protest. First time in my life that I can say I've seen just about as many white people
Mm-hmm.
peacefully protest in support of black lives than I have
Yes.
black people themselves. But just in closing, where do we go from here? What can we do? We've mentioned a lot of society. We've touched a little bit on Christianity. Give me your final input on and on the in the top right of your screen. You'll see Steps of Success 5K, which, Demetrius, this is one of your babies here that you are CEO. Steps of Success 5K.org is a wonderful, wonderful program and a race that, or a run and a walk that you take care of every year, that raises a lot of money for the community in different areas, from scholarships and helps in a lot of areas. I can't get into all that, but please go to stepsofsuccess5k.org and find out all about that. You also have a your 5K this year will be virtual, which I think is cool. I'm looking forward to being a part of that. But I want to leave this, just whatever's on your heart. Where do we go from here today? We know that there's small changes we've talked about, but as people, perspective, what can we do to make things better today?
Follow peace with all men. Follow peace with all men. I believe the millennials today, and you said it, you hit it on the head. They're about action and not talk. Um, I've been a youth pastor in at a church where we had a hard conversation with some young people. They said, "We don't believe a thing you all say because you say things." And we would just cancel car washes. Oh, we're tired. Let's just cancel. So they, unbeknownst to us for years, would sit in meetings, hear all these great New Year plans. We're going to go to the beach, and every month we're going to give time to our youth. And when they broke huddle, they would go in their rooms, Joe, eat candy and say, "Man, they ain't going to do nothing." And sure enough, half the things we aspired for our youth to do, we didn't do because we were too busy being adults and too busy. And they started raising themselves. Well, a baby in a room by themselves don't get mad when they got the marker, as my younger brother found out last week, and my niece went and marked up the whole first floor of the house when he woke up. And he had with a Sharpie on her face and every
I
wall.
I will not
And
confirm or deny that my mom says my first word that my brother helped me spell, which I wrote in permanent marker all over the house wall, FART, my friend. I
oh
have been
wow.
there with a backwards F.
Right. Oh wow. Action. I think, and again, my nonprofit, we work with thousands of youth in the underserved community. We're at the table with some of Nashville's, Brother Joe, greatest collegiate minds. We partner with Belmont, Fisk, but Harry. I'm purpose to ignite, inspire, and transform lives. And my nonprofit is 46 years old. I've lived half my life according to stats. I don't want to take my last breath without doing my part with giving our youth a chance to just be a kid. I'm trying to put them back in cradles with little babies, as we said the scripture, except you become as children. When are we going to invite our millennials in and not tell them what the word of God says, but put them on the stage, put them on the stage, and we sit down and we listen to some very good white and black and Latino different cultural youth tell us how they really feel. So they want to be listened to. And I've heard that from my staff. I put and implemented a student advisory board on my team. I scaled my team and said, wait a minute, here we are 46 trying to help 26 years old. Let's put some 26 years old on our board and allow them into our board meeting, and we shut our mouths and say, Vanderbilt, what's going on? Tennessee State, what's going on? And we bring these leaders, which is my strategy, bring different ethnicities on my board and teach them and get them back to what God truly wanted, that I can respect and follow leadership of a human being who was right, not black, not white, but leadership. And the only way we're going to get to turn this, number one, we have to admit that racism exists. The world is mimicking the church, and we have Sundays the most racist and most segregated day in the world. We go to our little white churches, we go to our little black churches, we go to our little masses, and then we come back Monday morning and then we congregate at work, right? Hey, how you doing? When is the church going to step up and get in Jerusalem and Judea and the uttermost parts of the world? He didn't tell us to congregate in our own churches, but go out. And when are we going to partner as churches, black and white, multicultural, and get out in the community and walk with? But we're afraid that walking means we believe that everything. What would Jesus do if George Floyd was right in front of him? And do you think he would have sat there and said, "Well, it ain't my problem. Well, he's black. I'm just gonna let him go." He died for everyone. Our youth wants to hear fact. They don't want to be lied to for another 400 years. Let's open up that racism agrees. There's some racist people in my family, black, that don't like white. They're racist. And I'm going to call them, you're racist. Just you can get all lawyery all you want. Your 10 points or whatever why you are. Nope. That's what it is. If you have white friends, white church members, white co-workers at the basketball court, we need you. Silence is, sort of poster said, tolerance is admitting racism. Tolerance, I just tolerate, it's not my problem. No, we have to speak out against it and come together. And you protect our friendship by saying, that's my brother. And if you talk against Demetrius and his brother and his brother and his brother, then you have a problem with me. And until that happens, until we say that and admit that racism and that we have some racist tendencies, read the book Anti-Racist. Woo, it'll peel you up. I don't hate. No, that book will peel you up and make you go, I think that maybe I am. And if we're all honest and can repent and say, wow, Lord, I do have a little bit of tendencies. If we don't admit it, we're going to be here another 400 years. We got to get with our young people. We got to have conversation, let them vent, listen to them. But if there's no action, if the next murder and the next murder and the next injustice happens, repeated, we will never get out of this until those, Benjamin Franklin, close with that, until you become as outraged about injustice not being impacted as those are, justice will never be served. That's the answer for non-blacks and people as a whole. If you run over someone else's property, oh, it wasn't mine. No, that's my friend. Hey, I should be empathetic about it. That's true. Let brotherly love continue. So our youth want to hear it. We've got to get in front of them, let them vent. We got to bring the police together. We got to bring Army veterans together and have a dialogue and not let what you see and hear. Your perspective is your perspective, but guess what? The Bible says every man is right, thinks he's right.
Mm-hmm.
I want
Right.
to be right, but I'm right until I'm proven wrong, and I've been wrong a whole lot. But I have to set my ego down and say, man, you know what, Joe? I learned about some things, and I understand now why you feel the way you feel about the flag. But then you ought to say, well, Demetrius, now I understand how your forefathers felt um, in a bunker with my white brother, and they writing letters to each other and hugging each other at war. But when they make it back home, we have dogs sicked on us, and we have to be spit on. We were treated better in Vietnam. And you want me to stand for that flag or sing that Star Spangled Banner that didn't include us? Let's have conversation. Let's give our youth a chance. Here's my plea. Don't indoctrinate your 7-year-old with your foolishness. Give your daughter a chance. Black man, don't tell your 8-year-old son that you're only going to serve black leadership. The best manager that God has for your 8-year-old might be a white man that will bring your son into abundance. Don't judge a female because she's female that she's not educated and she can't do the job. I got a bomb wife and she's the bomb and she's a CEO and I'm pushing her to be the best. And I have a daughter that's saying, you can be all you can be. Give our youth a chance. Don't indoctrinate them with what we have been indoctrinated with. That's the only way this is going to be broken. If we be honest, admit there is racism, and do something about it, about breaking down systemic racism and systematic oppression.
There are a lot of people who fail to realize that Jesus was a Palestinian Jew. He was not a white American.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people perceive him as a white American Jesus, and he is not. Many Christians would cross the street to the other side to avoid a Palestinian Jew.
Wow.
Many people, not just Christians.
Wow.
But imagine if we look at Jesus as who he was
Mm.
in our country as a minority. And that's
Mm.
what God showed me.
Wow. That's powerful, Joe.
And I wasn't. It dawned on me one day that Jesus on those walls, those pictures we've seen, that's not who that is. He is
Facts.
he is a Palestinian Jew. He wasn't. He didn't look like me,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't even he wouldn't have probably been able to go to the same barber,
Nope.
Demetrius,
Nope.
because of the type of hair he had
Mm-hmm.
and how it grew. but that is
Am I
the
getting there?
Jesus.
Just want to be like Jesus. Huh?
So close. Oh my goodness. But thank you so much for
Thank
opening
you.
up. And there's so many comments on here. I wish I could have got to them, but I wanted to squeeze as much as I could. But hopefully, what I would like to do is invite you back sometime, and I'm going to do a round table and
Would love it. Yeah,
have
yeah.
maybe two or three on, and we'll keep the topics pretty narrowed down. But thank you, Demetrius, for being so open and so real. You're a true friend and a brother. And if you would ever need me, just know that, man, you could pick up that phone and I would be right there. That's how I feel. And I appreciate you being with us.
Well, we love you and your family, man. For you, we love you. Appreciate you talking about the elephant in the room. If we do this more, this is how the tide is going to turn and shift. So I'm open, and we'll definitely have you on our platforms also. So thank you for doing what others aren't brave enough to do. Thank you for having courage. Let me say that. Thank you for having the courage. It took courage to do this and to be there. So I applaud you. Thank you. And anything I can do for you, you know I'm here for you, my friend.
I do know that. Happy birthday to your daughter, 16.
Tomorrow, send me some money, cash. She gonna hit my pockets. I need some help. I'm outnumbered in this house, man. It's 2-1. I need another dog or somebody to help me out. I'm outnumbered.
Thank you so much, my friend. I
My friend,
appreciate you very
glad you
much.
too, man. Thank you
All
so very
right,
much.
take
My
care.
love to you, man.
Bye bye, my
Yes,
friend.
thank
Wow,
you.
such a wonderful person, a great individual, and I'm so thrilled that Demetrius was here and just just a solid friend. Thank you, Demetrius, for being here, and thank all of you. An hour and 40 minutes in. I've never had a show this long, but I won't apologize because the subject matter is so vital and important. And I appreciate you so much. All of you have made comments. Jeff, Joel, Angela, Angie, many of you, Jonna, thank you as I'm scrolling through here. Abby Ann, Violet, thank you guys, all of you for watching the show. And please, please do something to make a difference today. We're not going to all agree on everything, but what we can agree on, Black lives do matter. Demetrius said himself, all lives matter, but we're bringing awareness to the unfair treatment of black people in our country. And unless we admit it and face it, that there are issues, then we can't heal. So let's first admit it. And my goodness, so many questions, so many more things that we could have discussed, and we will discuss, hopefully, as we'll do this show again in the next week or two. We'll do a roundtable discussion. Thank you for watching the show again. I appreciate you so much. Don't forget, you can download the podcast for free on Apple Podcast if you have an Apple device, an iPhone, iPad. Go to Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the Joseph Reed Show for free. You'll be able to get the audio of this show ad free along with all of our other past shows. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.